So first of all, thank you all for staying all the way towards the end. We were thinking there was probably two audience in this last session, with the 3 presenter and 2 audience, but it's better than we expected, huh? So with that said, welcome everybody to this session of Business Intelligence Enablement. My name is Amy Tong. I'm the Deputy Director and CIO of Lottery. It's my privilege to introduce the 2 other panel members, who the 3 of us would speak to you this afternoon or right now about the whole enablement of business intelligence. So to my left, let me introduce Chris Riesen. He is the Chief Enterprise Architect at CalPERS. And next to him is Alex Castro. He's the CEO of MCorp, also the sponsor of this panel discussion today. So Chris and Alex, would you want to go in and tell them a little bit about yourself? We'll start with Chris. And for those of you that are coming late, I heard there's a rule, $5 for every minute you're late. That covers our cookie later on.
So like Amy said, my name is Chris Riesen. I'm the Chief Enterprise Architect, but part of the main reason why I'm involved in this event and part of this talk is because I'm also responsible for the Business Intelligence program at CalPERS and have been involved with it for the past 3 years. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I'm standing up where Amy is.
And I'm Alex Castro. I'm with MCorp. We have an enablement model that we're going to offer a little bit of insight and kind of help frame the discussion today.
All right. This being the last session of the day, and I know you all probably information overload and pretty tired right now. So it's every intent of ours to make this session as interactive as possible. We're going to go through a series of slides. If we need to, we'll do some song and dance just to keep the room lively. And we might do once in a while wave just to make sure everybody's not falling asleep. But you will see the 3 of us will take turn to coming up to the podium to presenting our respective piece. Okay? So with that, Alex, you want to come up first?
That's awesome. You can't leave. Okay. So a little bit today, we're going to go through the enablement framework a little bit. It really more to frame, right? To give some context. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Chris, and he's going to talk about where CalPERS is in their maturity of enablement of analytics within their enterprise, right? And also really to give you some contrast to that, then Amy will talk a little bit about how Lottery is enabling analytics and business intelligence within their enterprise. And you'll be able to see a little bit about how different agencies within the state are taking that approach, right? So I think everybody got a little box. Some of you have opened it, maybe not. Can you guys find this on right next to you, right? I was thinking about this when we were kind of putting them out on the chairs. I realized that this thing can turn into a very quick sphere that that can be thrown if this doesn't work out well, right? A little bit of poor planning, right? So really the purpose of this, right, in terms of how I view business intelligence and analytics, right? This is your analytics engine. This is your BI and analytics tool set. Put any kind of brand on it that you want, any platform that you want. This is what gives you that sort of magic that happens, right? So what's the one thing that we have all been educated in, and has anybody in here not used one of these before? I should ask that question. Have you've never used a Magic 8 Ball before? Okay, all right. You're a perfect example, okay? This is really good, okay? So what I want you to do is, do you have one? Do you have one available to you? Okay. What I would like you to do, right, is think of a question that you have. That just, try to keep it, a little bit kind of mainstream, right, as a question. And ask the 8 Ball, right? Because the whole purpose of the Magic 8 Ball is you ask it a question and it gives you an answer, right? Because that's what BI and analytics is about, right? We want to ask the data a question and we want an answer, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to ask a question and you're going to say it out loud so that we all benefit from it, if you don't mind, right? And then you're going to flip it over and the Magic 8 Ball is going to give you an answer, okay? You can't sheet and kind of, all right? So think of just a question. Any question?
How many people attended the big data event?
Great question. Shake the magic 8 ball, turn it over, and see what it says. What's the answer?
Consult me later.
That is a perfect BI analytics answer, isn't it? Right? Right? So just out of that simple example, right? How many people here have touched BI or analytics in some way, somehow? Just give me a quick reference point, okay? So most of the people who have touched BI and analytics in the past, right? She's asking that question, and what's the first thought that came into your mind when she said, how many people attended this conference? What was the first thought in saying, she's asking the 8 ball?
It's not a yes or no.
Right? So what happens in that BI and analytics world? Some program people here, right? Non-technology people, some technology people here. What happens when you don't know how to ask the question? Right? You get an answer you have no idea what to do with. All right? And that's one of the biggest challenges in BI and analytics in the industry by far right now. Right? Is everybody's rushing to big data, everybody's rushing to analytics. They're being told that free Google Analytics, right? I was in a meeting this morning. I couldn't come to the morning session because I was in a meeting with a large bank this morning, and we were talking about their analytics, and they were running Google Analytics because they were trying to run metrics on really being able to connect and generate additional leads within their banking product set to be able to leverage out and contact specific individuals in terms of products that they wanted to put out there, right? And the thing that they're struggling as a multi-billion-dollar top 10 bank in the world is they cannot figure out how to ask the question, okay? And they have significant amount, probably around 40 million right now invested in their analytics platform, okay? No joke. They've got some really sharp people because they can pay for them. And so what happens is this, right? Is this essence that either the implementation wasn't right? You get that kind of language going on. You've got the silver bullet didn't generate the result I wanted. The lag time between the time I have a question and I have a need and the time that it takes to get that answer out of analytics is too far apart. I can't react fast enough on that data, okay? The users are asking questions like how out of a magic 8 ball, and I'm not picking on you because I think you had a wonderful example and I really appreciate you playing along with it, is that a lot of time, people in the business side, even in the technology side, don't know how to ask the question, right? And then they get this piece of data that comes out and they don't know what to do with it, right? And so what happens is that you start to have all of these conditions that you see in the colors above, and then the fallout is kind of capsulized in those 3 elements that are right down at the bottom. So Forrester did some research, right? And they came back and they said 52% of practitioners fail to use more than half of the capabilities of any analytics implementation currently in the marketplace. Okay? So if you pay $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $10 million for your analytics implementation, and no bones about it, analytics is like implementing ERP. It is not cheap. It is not a whim. It is a culture change of how you think and behave, okay? 52% of those implementations are generating 50% of the value because they are not really utilizing the capabilities of the product, because they don't know how to use the capabilities of the product, right? Nearly 2/3 of those implementations, they would walk away from and go to something else if they could, all right? And that includes people who are using Google Analytics or any other mass industry product, okay? The biggest thing that we're encountering as a consulting firm is that the business side is coming into what we call project fatigue. So every single time that you want to change something, right? A report, a dashboard, a model. We have a client in the banking industry, again, that utilizes models to do predictive analytics, right, in terms of consumer behavior. It costs them $1 million in 1 year to generate a single analytical model, okay? This is a top 10 bank. The challenges are that every time you need to change something, it's fatiguing, right? Because as technologists, what are you going to do? You're going to put them into a project life cycle, right? What's your scope? We need to do a charter. We need to manage this. We need to go through a requirements phase. We need to manage the whole process, follow PMI best standards, right? Follow the structure so we know we implement correctly, right? If you're a business user, right, you're working in a flow environment, right? I need answers now. You mean I have to stop my train of thought? I now have to go to meetings. Okay, so I just wanted to change this one report. I have to sit down with somebody and I have to figure this out. Okay, now it's changed, whatever. Different answers are coming back from analytics because you're asking different questions. Now they want to change the output again. What do they have to do? They have to go through the project life cycle again, right? They want to change a model. What do they have to do? They have to go through the project life cycle again, okay? And after a certain point, what happens is what you see on those two sidebars is that they say, enough. I don't have time for this. I'm going to run in and I'm just going to start using spreadsheets again. What happens to the value of the investment? Starts to go down. That's your tipping point, okay? So this is something that we're seeing widely as an industry challenge right now. So what we have in this context is looking at an enablement model, right? So it combines maturity with a path of, I'm buying tech, I've got these people and processes, and I also have questions. How do I begin to do it, right? And really what we're looking at is really 5 levels, right? Level 0 is manual. Level 4, which is the tippity top, we call flow-based, right? Where at this point, analytics and the business are moving in synchronicity, and we are out of this project model, okay? And so the elements in between are a migration process of maturity that you go through that have certain inputs and outputs that you're looking for to be able to represent where you are in that, but also being able to identify, this is where I am, this is where I want to go, I need to build that roadmap, and how am I going to go through that? Not just by buying tech, right? But how am I also going to do it by changing the way I interact with the business? Who owns it? Who owns the question and who owns the answer, right? Am I just creating more data marts? How am I managing data governance? Excuse me. So what we look at is how do you move through this enablement framework to be able to get to a certain point. So I think I've chewed up my 10 minutes at this point, right? And what I want to be able to do is hand it over to Chris and to Amy a little bit. And what they're going to do is they're going to talk about where they are in their implementation of this enablement within the context of their enterprises. And then at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to leave you with a top 10 list of things to consider when you're going forward in the BI and analytics world, all right? This is really not a technical presentation. It's not meant to be very high level. It's more to stimulate the thought process, is that it's all very exciting, but before you go bum rushing into buying a bunch of software and hardware and people and putting people in a room together, consider where are we, what question am I trying to get answered, is the conversation I have the most. It's typically how I start a meeting, is what do you want to know? Forget everything else, what are you trying to get answered, right? And then you have to sort out, do you have the right data, do you have the right tools, do you have the right methods? Okay, so at this point, I will introduce Chris.
Thank you, Alex. So I want to talk a little bit about where CalPERS is at and where we've been over the course of the last few years, and put it in context of what Alex has been talking about, particularly around that enablement framework. So just to kind of give you a sense of things, we started up really looking at business intelligence and hoping to make use of it roughly about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago or so. And we started, our first year, we did proof of concepts and we used spreadsheets. We didn't buy any new tools. We didn't build a data warehouse or start working on modeling data or anything. We actually just found a few instances in the organization where we might be able to prove something out and use spreadsheets to do that work. After that, we started maturing a bit further and started moving into some of the places that allowed us to take advantage of using tools or bringing in an information architect who's sitting right here, Jeff, and doing things that allowed us to mature our program and hopefully make it more of a tool that could be used in the organization. We've got plenty of challenges, for sure, but we are moving along. And when I look at the MCore framework, there's a lot of areas that are in the level 2 and 3 that we're kind of a mix of. So we really kind of have a multi-layered program, right? Obviously, the business is our customers, and they are a key aspect of that program. But this fiscal year, so beginning in July, we recognized, or maybe a little bit before when we started putting changes in, we recognized that the BI program itself needed to change. And so really what I want to focus on is some of the structure and the changes that we've been making this year to hopefully make what we do more effective. And so we really have kind of the business side of things up on top. We have what we call delivery services, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, and then really the data and technology services that underlie that. But before we get to that, we have to have a bunch of pictures that are really difficult to read. One of the things that we're very focused on this year is actually getting more business ownership and more business leadership of the entire BI program. And so this picture actually came from our roadmap that we developed in our first year. That was one of the pieces that we put in place. But it's only now, into our third year, when we're actually getting to a place where BI governance is effective for us, where we can get the business to start owning the decisions to be made and priorities to be made that really get their hands into it from more of an enterprise perspective. And so we're putting this in place right now where we have a business-led body that makes decisions on what are kind of the highest areas of value for us to be working on. And so then hopefully what happens is those requests and that work that needs to happen comes into that band that I had up earlier called delivery services. And for us, what this group is really about is hopefully being able to respond to the customers quickly, right? So that we're not getting into the project fatigue side of things, but being able to deliver something quickly to our customers, whether it's in a spreadsheet, whether it uses SaaS analytics, whatever tools we may have at our disposal. And so we've built into this view of things analysts, our business intelligence and analytics experts, report development, data engineering, data quality, all the pieces that are needed to kind of quickly come together and hopefully deliver something of value. And it's not adding something into a warehouse. It's not building out any long-term pieces. It's very tactical. However, these same people also recognize when there is something of strategic value that we do need to build for more of a long term. And so that's where the data and technology side of things comes in. And this is where there's more structure to our program. It's really, there's more of a life cycle, right? We have architects who are busy planning out what does the model in our data warehouse look like? What does our BI environment need to look like in order to meet long-term needs of the organization? And so when that delivery services side recognizes something of value that needs to really be more cemented into what we do, they hand it off to the data modelers, to our data integration people, and they really build those hard structures that end up being part of the environment from a much longer term perspective. And so we've got all these various roles that we've started to build out and allow us to really be able to hopefully, and we're in the middle of this right now, do quick delivery to our customers and then also build out the longer term pieces that hopefully 5 years from now are still in use. And so kind of what's in these two areas, including the governance piece, is a mix of the various pieces that actually show up, if I can go back real quickly, all the way back to Alex's slide, kind of in here where we've got our data modeling. We're driving it from a business domain perspective and how they intend to use it. We've got standard modeling processes, which are really in the level 2 that allow us to create more consistency in what we're doing, and we're modeling for the enterprise rather than individual areas. We're working on the structured governance, which is part of level 3. So we really have a mix of those two levels in the framework. Okay, now I gotta go forward. And so now I'm gonna hand it over to Amy to talk about where lottery is at and what they're doing.
Thanks, Chris. So as Alex mentioned earlier, the lottery portion is actually, it's a good contrast model. As you can see, CalPERS is fairly mature. We're looking at step 2, level 3, borderline there. But how many of you representing an organization that you think that you probably have reached that maturity level? Let me see a hand. Just do a survey. How many of you that at the beginning of considering BI and BA for your organization and just get to the point that realize that BA doesn't stand for Bachelor of Art degree, it's actually business analytics. Raise your hand if you're thinking in that way. So lottery probably falls in that arena that we have moved beyond using a magic 8-ball to make decisions, even though I love magic 8-ball, but start moving into providing analytics and results of the data to our business so that they can make sound decision based on that. And I've joined a lottery in the past, probably just in the past 14 months, Christmas Eve of 2012. I have to rub that in. Just shows my dedication to the organization. But the BI and business analytic team has been, down in this journey for several years already. And similar to what Chris is saying, that we're still at the stage where, Excel, Microsoft Analytic tool, it's a primary tools that we use to generate these reports and results. And for us, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's part of, before you're investing tons of money into something, you do want to show, in a reasonable amount of investment, what you can do to demonstrate value to our business so that in return, they can see the value and they invest more. It's not a big bang approach that give me, $3 million and I'll demonstrate to you in 2 days what we can do. Let's not set ourselves that kind of unrealistic expectation. So, we're in the process that we are having a data warehouse put together. There's several cubes that are in place using SharePoint as the simple tool of as a visualization of the information that's presented to our users. There are remote accessibility to a lot of the reports that have drill down capability. So our business customer in this stage is very dependent or have developed a reliance on using this information and help them to do what they do every day. Now, what I'm trying to point out here is that as we're going through this maturity journey, there's also a difference of getting so used to reporting or ad hoc reports or statistical reports out of information versus moving towards really what analytics is all about. And I think that is also a journey, not just the technology folks need to articulate, but really helping our business users to understand that. And maybe let me step back a little bit. While we have the program that are working with one segment of our business entity, in this case is the sales and marketing customers in lottery, they have maybe a little bit more maturity in using the information. We're starting with another group of the users in the lottery, which is our financial side of users. For them, we are step 0. And for the sales and marketing folks, they're probably step 1 or level 1. And that is also a normal progression of organization. Not every single lines of business is going to progress at the equal pace. That's unrealistic. It's depending on the primary lines of business of your organization. That's where your priority comes in. But the important thing is to keep a holistic approach, so you're not just putting all your energy in your single most important lines of business and neglecting everybody else. Because if you want to move an organization as a whole forward, that the supporting organization is just as important as your primary lines of business when it comes to depending on analytics to make business decision. So with that said, some of our roadmap, if you would, is looking at the short term, midterm, long term. And this is really more of a 6 months, 18 months, 24 months. I didn't do that math correctly. That didn't add up, did it? You get my point. from really the adoption and usability of our BI and BA program, continue to work with the user. One group, the user, maybe a little bit more down the path, the other are starting. Have them share experience with each other. The best champion of the BI program is your business user. If they can go in the room and bragging about it, I see my former boss here, Terry. Terry, wave your hand. And I still remember one of the things is that you do want your technology organization to be something to be bragged about by your business. So if they can get into the room bragging about what BI produced to them, and they actually, duke it out with each other in prioritizing what's most important, that's exactly where you want to be. That's adoption and usability. Reporting and analytics. Help them differentiate the reporting needs versus analytic needs. And that is something to help them to help you. Because the more people, if they get too much reliance on just report, you will continue to be stuck in what I call the tactical approach, ad hoc. Yes, I see a hand raised in the background.
So what's the major difference between ad hoc reports and analytics?
Ad hoc report, I wish there was a diagram earlier that we saw in other sessions too. The reporting statistic is demonstrating what has happened, where the analytics, based on the information you have now, projecting what's going to happen. Yes?
So is that software dependent? Do you have to have analytics software to do that?
I don't believe so, but feel free to jump in if you guys, I'll add my 2 cents.
I would say software helps you, right, be able to apply certain maybe statistical methods and such to being able to project something out into the future. But we've been doing analytics before we ever had software to help us.
I mean, there's something called manual analytics. You can run, an Excel pivot table and create, that's analytics and business intelligence reporting, right? So where the difference, the cutover point is business intelligence is really, as Amy was describing, just cultivating what you know and putting it into a report. Analytics allows you to connect the dots and begin to derive intelligent answers out of the data. Okay, so it gives you a little bit deeper dive into it. And then you have the different types, which is descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive, right? So then it gets into slices of that and how do you do it, and visual analytics versus code-based and things like that. So, I mean, all the dynamics start to kick in. But I hope that answers it.
Yeah, good question. And I think this also speaks to the point that, don't jumping into purchasing some expensive tool and thinking that's going to help you take your maturity level of a BI program into the next level, simply procuring this tool. A lot to do still have to have involved the human factor of it. And some of these items, you look at it, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a good mixture of getting the user adoption, good analytical capability, demonstrating the value, while not forgetting the whole infrastructure side. If this is something, I know my manager of a network and servers here, this line is for you, Jason, that, for organization to the infrastructure not becoming the bottleneck of progress, you always have to be a step ahead to trying to make it happen ahead of time. And by that itself, it's a business analytics of how you're operating, because you know what's coming, the data demand is only going to get bigger. So get on with it, right? Be proactive and making all the necessary changes so that the last thing you want to hear from your business customer, or the reason you have to explain to your business customer that the reason why you cannot deliver is not because I didn't procure enough storage or our system is too slow to produce. So make sure that it's handled ahead of time. So having that said, I'm going to turn over to Alex to continue on some of the consideration. Probably just to close out my portion of it, sustainability of a BI program is very, very important. We have always said that looking at business intelligence not as a project approach, but a program approach is a journey that an organization have to go through. Through that journey, though, able to demonstrate value consistently, able to get the funding that you need to keep the program going. And even at lottery, we don't make up our own Powerball number so we can win and fund this program ourselves. We do have to demonstrate the value so our business continue to fund this, investment. So that would be a segue. Back to you.
Okay, so what we wanted to do was throw some considerations in, at least something that you can take away from the short time that you've spent in the room, to really be able to at least reflect on some things as you're making decisions as you go forward here, right? Because the purpose of the conference today was really getting a lot of different contextual views, technically, process-wise, and things. So what we wanted to offer is some of these pieces. So we're just going to walk through these a little bit. And what we'd encourage at this point is that start throwing up hands and don't throw the 8 balls, right? One of the points that I like to make is that analytics is really about how you make decisions and operate. It's not about a tool, right? The tool just enhances it. So really keep in mind that when you're doing analytics and BI, you're changing and transforming the way that you operate as a entity, as a department, right? It's not about, well, there's data here, I'm going to buy this tool, put it on top, and I'm going to magically get answers out of it, right? It's more about how you function, right? Again, just kind of in hand, Amy spoke to this, is that, and so did Chris, is focusing on the end user for both inputs and outputs, right? One of the conversations that you have to have is who owns the analytics and who owns the questions and the answers, right? Because the thing you don't want to fall into is that data warehouse model that was happening 10, 15 years ago, where you build a data warehouse and then IT's the person telling you whether or not you can access that data, and telling you whether or not you can get that report, and telling you whether or not it's, because what happens is then you have a proliferation of a data warehouse and then like 2,000 access databases everywhere with the exact same data, and then people start calling and saying, oh, you guys changed a field and it broke this access thing that I've been using for the last 18 months, so can you come and fix it? And you're like, what access database that you got? So then analytics is very susceptible to that same condition, right? If people start to do too many things on their own, suddenly you've got all of this willy-nilliness going on, right? One thing that is really clear is that fast is always better than slow. It's kind of like one of those, I don't know who does that commercial with the little kids, right? Thank you. So AT&T, there we go. So fast is better than slow. It's the data is aging, right? And doing any predictive or prescriptive modeling, we change our behaviors all the time as individuals. So think about all the stuff that you're surfing for, and you're sitting, waiting, and checking out, and all those are all data points getting absorbed, and your behavior is changing. So the longer it takes you to model, the less accurate that model is. This is one of my big things, is build a maturity roadmap based upon a business strategy and need, right? So figure out where you are, get a framework in terms of an enablement framework, have a realistic perspective, this is where we are, both technically, but process-wise and culture-wise, and then say, in order for us to move these things together, even if it's business unit by business unit, right, at least have a strategy for business unit A, business unit B, business unit C, and how does that align with the technology? Because Amy had a really great point, which is buying the technology is not going to generate the answer. It's being able to ask the question, leverage the tech, and get the answer that you need, right? And then, Chris, I think you had some of these in here, so I'll read them off. Maybe you can talk to them a little bit, right? Is the build the BI strategically, but execute tactically.
Yeah. And that goes to where I think we've reached these days, where you want to think strategically about the entire analytics program, but if you try and implement strategically and try and deliver to your customers strategically, they're going to get, they're not going to stop waiting for you. So you've got to do all this tactical work and figure out how to build that together to ultimately deliver more strategically for the organization. People aren't going to wait around. And we continue to struggle with it. Even though we're trying to make that change, it's still a challenge for us to be able to do so.
Yeah, that's some great points there. understand the knowledge and the skill required to successfully execute. I think, you had, I don't know if Amy, you want to speak to that a little bit because you were bringing that up a little bit, Chris, but one of the things that's really going to be critical is as you're building out this roadmap, you've got to know, do I need to get a stable of data scientists, analytical scientists, or do I need more business analysts who understand analytics and BI, or do I need tech people, or do I need process people, or do I need business users who know the business so well that they can articulate the need of the business without having to go to the business, right? And then how do you build that governance component? I don't know if you have anything to add in that.
There's a lot to figure out, right? There's a lot of skills that come into play in all of this, and a lot of different areas of knowledge, both from a business perspective and a technical perspective. It takes a broad mix of skills and knowledge to really be able to, I think, accomplish these various aspects.
Right, because I can't emphasize to you enough that one of the benefits you have right now is that this industry is the utilization of analytics within the context of big data and the things that are going on right now, everybody's trying to move into that space together. So regardless of whether you're private sector or government, right, nobody has actually got the model, okay? That you would be pleasantly surprised that a lot of what government is facing is very similar to what private sector is facing. The difference maybe is that private sector has invested heavily already, and now they're in the, I've spent 25 million and I need to get something out of it, right? And so they're in that sort of a bit of a panic right now because they've invested. We were told by somebody that BI and analytics was the future. We went and bought, and I'm not being better at it, right? Because they all want to be Amazon. They all want to be Google, right? But they don't have the maturity to understand how to deploy that. And a lot of the stuff that's coming out right now is very consumer driven from the context of how do I generate leads to sell something. All right? Yes, sir.
So I'm in the recommendation.
Okay.
And you just mentioned if you go around Amazon.
Yeah.
In the BI space, is government ready for recommendation engines, or is Del Jablonski called outcomes?
Yeah.
Is government ready for that?
I'll put it to you in a blunt way. I'm not really sure what they would do with it, right? Because the challenge is that all the BI and analytics stuff that happens today, right, is really, a lot of people see it as really sexy. Look at all of the cool charts and the things I can see real time, right? Yeah. When you go, honestly, when you go into your bank account next time online, start to look at the ads because they're directly targeted at you. Whether you haven't realized that yet or not, they pay attention to every single thing you do. They know everything you buy. They know exactly when you get paid, how you spend your money, where you spend your money, right? They collaborate with other entities to ensure that there is a product that is viable for you in an ad on that web page every single time. If you hover over something, they collect that data. Okay? Who's the third largest server manufacturer in the world? Does anybody know the name of the company that produces the third amount, right? You can probably imagine the top two server manufacturers. Who's the third? Google. Okay? And you know why? They have a copy of every single web page in the world. And they go to that either every day, every week, every month, and they get another copy of that. So when you do a Google search and that stuff comes up, that's coming from their data warehouse, not from the site. Okay? That's big data, right? And if you want to apply that into government, right? The question is, this outcomes measurement, yeah, eventually. But at the end of the day, what are you looking at, right? You're going to be looking at much more mundane things that are going to generate huge value, right? But they're kind of, I want to do automated budgeting, right? If I know how every program performs and the value of the outcome of that program, I can now automate my budgeting process, right? So predictive modeling and financial forecasting, not sexy, huge value, right? The amount of brain damage you go through every year generating all of the budget requests, right? So it's that type of stuff that, yes, in medicine, it has a lot of value. How does that affect program? Right now, it's going to be more reactive than proactive, right? That's the nature of government, So how do you use that data to understand how to better service and quantify monies in that direction, resources in that direction, things like that. So, even for entities like PERS and, for lottery, yeah, sales and marketing. You guys are going to want to know what ticket sells the best. PERS is going to want to be able to, PERS is moving, the whole pension system is moving to the individual, not to a group, right? So it's moving away from the group, moving to the individual. So as a member, you're going to want to know, okay, if I change my investment model, what is it going to look like? So eventually, right, you're going to be online as a member, and you're going to change your investment model, and it's going to show you a graph of what it's going to look like or what it's looked like in the past, and you're going to make a decision based on that, right? It's going to create that transparency, right? Is that the biggest value? No. Is that the sexiest thing? Absolutely. Right? Okay? The biggest value to PERS is the legislature just gave me 12 permutations of the same concept. I need to understand exactly the financial impact, right? And I need to feed that out into the whole county model, and I need to know that within 6 days so I can report that back to the legislature and we can make a decision, right? Not sexy, really kind of boring, grindy, mishy kind of stuff, but it generates huge value. So sorry to drone on that one, but let's see, what time is it? It is 3:27, so you guys can read, right? So I don't need to for you, right? I just want to offer, is there questions?
Yeah, I'll ask one other question. In the art of all of this, how are you incrementally developing a strategic plan enough that's still convincing executives to hang on to that concept, to wait, that ROI is coming one day? How are you facilitating all of that? I mean, I don't know if that's...
I'll let you
kind of a
answer
big
that
question,
first.
but-
Make the first cut of that.
Yeah, you must have read my mind, because that's exactly what we're going through right now, especially for organizations that are, at the infancy of this. I think the goal here is that you do want to take the time and energy to lay out that vision, that lay out that angle, that, so get the excitement, inspired your executive of, what the possibilities are. But at the same time, set realistic expectation that it's not an overnight success going to get there. It does take time. And then give some milestones, if you would, to see, hey, if I hit this milestone, here's my demonstration to you. This is something that works. And just make sure that those milestones are feasible, deliverable, that it's all about setting that right expectation. I think once you have that level of very candid conversation, and also point examples of how other agencies are doing it. So it's not like, this is specific to my department just because we want to do things 5 years rather than 3 years, or we aren't patient enough that I can't wait 2 years to have a result. Don't need to do that. I think, one thing I hope you find that throughout today's session, we hear over and over again, treat BI as a program. It's a long-term thing. So information that you got from here will be good to also help, educating your executives that this is in the long haul that we're investing into it. But I will give you a measurable milestone that you can look into and see how we're doing. That's my thought. Chris, you want to have anything to add?
I think the only other piece I'd add is it's business champions that need to carry it forward, right? Us as IT, we can provide a certain amount of support and structure and those sorts of things, but the business has to be able to say, here's what I got out of it, and we have to help deliver on that. And there's a one of the considerations up there is that partnership that's important, right? It's not just one or the other. It's not one, purely supporting the other. It's business intelligence and analytics is really about a partnership between skill sets that exist in the business and in IT. But I will say that the selling of it is most powerful when it's coming from, the business who's making use of whatever's coming out of it.
I know our time is up. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience. We'll be happy to take some. I know you two probably have to run, literally.
I don't know, I have a couple more minutes.
Yeah, a couple more minutes.
Any more questions?
But any closing thoughts or any closing remarks that you'd like to make?
You're done.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in. And make sure you take the magic 8-ball with you.